and welcome everyone to the DewatchPod. My name is Jorgen Smorgasbord.
And my name is Jim with a G.
And as usual, we are watching through the Black Mirror seasons backwards. We have arrived at season 5, just having finished off season 6. And the episode of the day is Striking Vipers.
Yeah, which I think we should also very specifically note to add to the achronological nature of this podcast. This is philosophically where this podcast started.
Yeah, no, this is very strange. This is going to be a bit of a one-off because this is the only episode both of us have seen.
Yeah, and it's one we've had I think a genuinely multi-hour long argument about previously.
Yeah, no. So, first of all, should you watch this episode?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
So I don't think. See, I had a good time because I thought it was very funny, but it was also a bit long. But I don't know. I don't. You know what? No, I'll agree. It's food for thought.
I don't agree that it's food for thought, but I do think you should watch it because I think it is. I don't know, like it is very funny, and like some of it, I'm like, yeah, they, it is intentional. A lot of it, I do think, is unintentional. I think the actors sometimes are pretty close to like breaking up in the middle, and they just kind of go with it. It kept me entertained in a very basal way throughout.
Yeah, no, honestly, like before we even dive deeper, like I think this episode is, if anything, carried by its actors very hard.
Yeah, and in a really weird way, but like I can't get into the weird way of that before we dive into the plot. So I'll leave that, but like there are some layers to the performance here.
Yeah, no. So go watch the episode now if you like. We'll dive into the short summary.
Oh, I thought we were gonna wait an hour for them to watch the episode and then come back.
They can pause the podcast.
They can do that.
Yeah, no. Sometimes technology does things. Sometimes it doesn't.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, sometimes it does things like make you fuck in cyberspace. Other times, it doesn't do things like remind you of your wedding anniversary.
That's a very deep cut. Hell yeah. Okay, so short summary. Like, this is, if you take out the like incidental humor and just kind of vibes as you go through it, this is a distinctly compressible episode, right?
Yeah.
Because we have a moment that is, I guess, like a prequel, like a prologue. Prologue's the word. That's the word. Sorry, I've been too poisoned by online discourse, I think. So there's the prologue. We are introduced to, I guess, 3 main characters. That seems correct. Yeah. We have Danny, who is
played by Anthony Mackie of Marvel fame.
I haven't watched Marvel. Is he like Captain America or something?
No, he's his sidekick. I don't think they have any black nature heroes.
Maybe this isn't the moment to interrogate that. But yeah, so we have Danny. He has a girlfriend. That's one of his defining attributes. And they have a little bit of a role play session of them being like, "Hello, stranger, you're hot."
Yeah, they do. They do the funniest thing a couple can do in a bar, which is play out one of them very poorly picking up the other, in the hopes that strangers will think it's real and be forever confused because that's how it worked. Alas. We meet everyone. Carl is sort of like the gamer best friend.
Oh, that's a harsh term to use for him. I was gonna use like he's the more playboyish of the cast.
He's a bit more juvenile. He's got more youthful vigor, and
you don't have to hit him with the hard G or being a bit more juvenile. Sorry, there's a lot of sounds there.
Yeah.
They have a moment where they, they're at a club. They're having, sexually charged moments with either the couple in this question, which is Danny and Theo.
That's right.
Got him. And then they go home. They apparently all live together. And then Danny and Carl play a game. What's that game called?
Striking Vipers?
Yeah. Which I don't actually really know what fighting game it's supposed to be like.
Oh, it's Mortal Kombat for sure.
Is it? Because I thought like the vibes. So I have played fighting games.
I haven't.
Okay, so it had a Street Fighter vibe to me, or maybe Tekken. But Striking Vipers does not actually sound like either of those, so...
Oh, yeah, no. You know what? I retract that. I think it's just generic fighting game.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we have this setup, then we have like an extended sequence where they're old now, brackets, late 30s. Theo and Danny have a kid. Carl is being sort of a playboy. He shows up at the birthday, gifts Danny the video game that's now extremely more advanced, and it's got a VR dongle, and their birthday sort of goes by.
Yeah, like I think in general, like here, this scene entirely establishes one of the like core parts of the mechanic of the story, right? Which is Carl. Sorry, get the name straight in my head. Carl is, getting older. He's 37 or 38, which is ancient. So I'm really doubling down on causing emotional harm to people in their late 30s if they're listening to this.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast and you're over the age of 30, I hope you've made a will. It's never too early, and you're already
get your dementia checks.
Yeah, you've waited too long already.
Whatever dreams you had, they're gone.
Yeah, no, you should be on your way to them by now.
All right, 40 seconds of elderly bashing, and I think we can move on. But yeah, like Carl is aging. He is still doing a playboy thing with women who are 10 years younger than him.
Yeah, and he's like a music guy and sort of leveraging that to meet younger women.
I did not pick up on that at all.
Oh yeah, no, he's like a music producer or something.
Oh, okay.
They're all like affluent, and money will never matter in this story.
But I think the point is like Carl is established as being like there's something missing there, right? Like he doesn't have the like security and comfort of a suburban lifestyle, which Danny and Theo have.
He has a giant studio apartment. I think it's more that he just like hasn't quite grown up.
Yeah, and like I do think there's a little bit more to it, but I think it kind of just runs through the episode, I suppose.
Absolutely.
The other side of it is that Danny is now a dad. He has a bad knee. His body is falling apart. Okay, I shouldn't go too hard on that because that's not actually true. That could have been an interesting subplot. Not the case.
No.
But yeah, he is like a little bit stuck, right? Like he's settled. He doesn't really seem to have much going on in his life. He doesn't really
on that grind,
but not in an exciting way.
Yeah,
right?
No,
like
he's on the bad grind. He's on the gray grind.
He lacks passion. He lacks excitement in his life.
Yeah, and he doesn't fuck his life.
He does not. Well,
wait, no, they
do fuck in the start. It's later when the unfucking becomes a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they both have, like I think this is a very typical setup, right? Like I don't think there's much we need to fill in after that.
Yeah, no, and that night, they log into the game, and
it's VR.
Yeah, but like it's hardcore VR. It's fucking jacked into your brain and giving you a different person's experience VR, and that person just happens to be like a hot, extremely virile and jacked and combative fighting game character.
Yeah, and I think like there is also a female character who is also very hot. She has some sort of like stockings, and she has, she's kind of like, because like I remember us having this argument the last time, like when we had our initial argument, because I interpret her as being sort of like Eastern European and thus like sexualized in that way, and you interpreted her as being Asian and sexualized in that way.
Yeah. No, I stand by that.
I stand by my side of things.
Fascinating. But yeah, no, like they get it. They like have a quiz and then a kiss. And
quizzes are also very hot for the record. Stay in school, kids.
Stay in school, but don't listen to this podcast if you're youthful. Have sex, play video games.
We both at the same time.
Yeah. have sex in a video game, the coolest thing.
You will not be cool by listening to this podcast.
But yeah, no, they get it on, but like Danny like pulls away because he's like, oh, this is
Okay,
weird.
I do think we really need to say, because you used the term "get it on" there, as in they kiss.
Yeah, and
I interpret
Carl playing Roxette, I think.
Yeah, hot, ambiguously ethnic woman.
Yeah, is the one who like initiates the kiss. And it's sort of like a very seamless transition from like fighting to oh, hold on, this is hot.
Yeah,
what?
It's like, this is some fucking Wattpad tier shit of like, oh, we were fighting and now I'm on top of you, straddling over your loins. How curious.
Yeah, no, and we have like a day of like just like them being sort of a bit bored with mundanity, and then we just slam into a montage. Sorry, headphone listeners, we're gonna have to figure out how that works in the edit. We just slam into a montage of them just fucking through like all the different
Going
like
to town
fighting
on one another.
Absolutely.
There's like, I think it's so good because like there's that moment, right, where they pull away from the kiss and like Dan is shocked and Carl's like, oh shit, I have made a move on someone and it is now very awkward, I'm out. And then next scene, both super into it.
Yeah, no, there is this very funny sequence where he's like, it's Danny is sitting at the console, and it's like, Carl is online. Carl has invited you to play, and that is what launches the montage.
Yeah, and that's like the next 20 minutes. It feels like.
It's not that long, right? It's just a montage.
No, but it's like, that's kind of what happens for the next 20 minutes or so, interspersed with, Carl's not having a lot of fun with his younger ladies, and Dan is not having fun being, like, having a family.
Yeah, and I guess I want to, like, highlight this now, like, whenever they're in the game, we get, like, shots back to their physical bodies, just sort of lying there, like, twitching a bit, with, like, eyes glazed over, like, very literally, like, they put an effect on it, and sort of mouth half open, just laying back in the couch. I've dubbed this in my notes, zombie looking.
I think that's very accurate.
And yeah, no, but yeah, no, that happens, and eventually, I think it's Danny forgets his anniversary with Theo.
Yeah, like, I think there's a little part of there where it's like, okay, it's showing that Danny is being like less attentive to her, like less physically affectionate, and just like less interested in sex with her. And kind of the same thing is happening to Carl.
Both of them are just caught up in this whirlwind video game affair.
Yeah, and everything else is less interesting to them as a result.
Yeah, and then we like get into this very hard conversation between like Theo and Danny, where she's just like going through all the reasons why he might be less interested in her, and he's just sort of shut down throughout the whole thing while she's like tearing her heart out in front of him and just trying to like connect, trying to get him to say something, and like it's this very asymmetrical like situation. Yeah,
and it's like one of those things that I was curious, like, because Danny's actor, I think, in this episode in general, never comes across as super emotional, right? Like, he doesn't have scenes where he cries, he doesn't really have scenes where he gets angry up until much later.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard in that moment to be like, is this his, like, is he shut down, or is this his emotional serious state?
Yeah.
But he, I mean, like, does essentially just straight up lie to her face and says there's nothing going on.
Yeah, I haven't been weird. Don't even worry about it, baby. But he does do the, like, instead of talking to his wife, he is just like, all right, I'm going to end this whirlwind affair now. And he does, and he goes through with it. And it's just a phone call, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. It's not fair to my wife. This is clearly an affair.
Carl disagrees. Carl's like, it's not even real. Is this where he says the line like it's just like porn or whatever? Yeah.
And we have another time skip. This time, we get back to Theo being receiving more attention. Danny being a better husband again, just like, and Danny is acting mostly normal again, and they're a couple months pregnant, pretty far actually.
Yeah, I want to say 3rd trimester by the looks of it.
And things are sort of back to normal. But there is that sort of underlying listlessness.
Yeah, like a slight tinge of melancholy in like things are back to normal. Is this what I really want?
Yeah, and we see this both with Carl and with Danny. And Theo is like sort of noticing, much like she was, well, a bit less than she was noticing her extremely absent husband before.
Yeah.
But things sort of go on, and then we get sort of the confrontation of the episode because, oh, whoops, Theo has invited Carl to stop by on Danny's birthday. Isn't that a fun surprise? And
I think for a few moments, like it's just such a beautifully acted scene because like there's straight up like Skyrim NPC face on Danny as he receives this news.
He's dying, right? And we have like the most apocalyptic dinner, right? They're just both being the worst hang, and especially Danny is just being the worst hang anyone could conceive of. And when Theo goes away to grab dessert, we get, I think, the scene of the episode.
Yeah, I know you're throwing it over to me here, and I'm just like I don't know how to introduce this. I don't know how to do justice to it.
Yeah,
because it's essentially for the second time this episode, Carl is like, "Hey, friend, we should get back to having like lots of sex because like I've been doing it and nothing compares to you. I've been doing it with the AI. I've been doing it with other people. I've been doing
anything and everything, and it's not the same. We have a special connection, and like the way this is sort of sold by the actor is like it's like someone who like has an addiction and who is trying to like get his dealer to sell to him again or something. Like
it is wonderfully acted.
Like it is, like he's like, hey, let's relapse together tonight. At 12 at midnight, meet me in the game.
Yeah, because I think this is like a fascinating turn where he goes from like pleading and begging for like, please, Danny, have sex with me in the game again, to you want it. Like I'm like, whew, hot damn, that's a turn. That's impressive.
And this is where we have this bizarre duality of like he is jonesing, and he's like, no, you're like me, you want this just as badly, and lo and behold, after just like squeaking over the finish line of like not completely fucking up the dinner so that Theo has to comment, he logs back in. Like they meet back in the game and they're back at it immediately.
Yeah, like,
even more intensely. I think it is framed.
I think it's wild that we do not even get a build up of like, hey, okay, fine, I am being tempted. It's not like, all right, you know what? It's 12. I can't sleep.
Yeah, no.
Let's bang.
No, the dial is like at 11 immediately.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's like this time, like we don't get a montage. We just hold on this for like a bit, and then we get the second like scene of the episode, because this episode has a lot of like strong confrontation scenes, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that are acted extremely well.
I do want to say on one thing, which is the moment where Carl, as Roxette, goes, "I love you," and obviously that causes a whoa, we gotta stop doing this again. Um, and like there's a moment where he tries to take it back and then immediately goes, ah, whatever. Like,
Yeah, no,
you know, you're into
he is going with the flow, and like he like tries to take it back, and but he's like, nah, I guess we're doing this, and like Danny doesn't like he doesn't like say like fuck off, right? He's like, where does this go? Which is, to be fair, a reasonable
It's a
question to
very
ask.
reasonable question,
Yeah,
and it is
no,
also a strange one to be like. That's not what you say in that moment. Essentially,
but he Danny is like, I have a resolution mechanism for this. We need to kiss in real life
yeah,
and see if there's sparks. Um, and he's like, meet me at this weird place.
yeah. Because now, at least from Carl's perspective, we ruled out it can't be with anyone else with Danny.
Yeah,
So now doesn't matter whether they're in the video game or not. So we have the scene. There's heavy rain. They're like alone, only lit up by the cars,
yeah,
and they kiss after a moment of non-sexual tension.
yeah. No, like the actors give this like the most intense no homo energy. Um, but there is this moment of hesitation because like despite being the one that is like far more like ready to like figure out where this is going, like Carl is like immediately after this, oh man, I guess that fucking sucked. That did nothing for me. And we get these like 2 beats of hesitation from Danny before he goes like, oh yeah, no, it was nothing for me either, totally. Um, and
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I was to interpret that as like a genuine indicator of something, but I am so glad we now have like cinematic proof of what it happens when straight guys get to say no homo afterwards and be good, you know? Like it's
well,
perfect.
yeah, but Carl is immediately back on his bullshit because he's like, yo, but we need to get back to fucking in the video game. And like he's so insistent that like they have a fight in the street in the rain, which I think is a very beautiful contrast to the initial fight they have as cool people in the video game. Because like I think they do a good job here conveying like 2 middle-aged men who haven't like thrown a punch in a decade, uh, sort of like duking it out badly in the street.
Yeah, just on like halfway on their knees at this point, just like slapping at each other roughly,
Yeah,
like it's good.
and we come again to the police station. Theo is picking up Danny, and she justifiably has some questions. And
And I cannot deny that I think the shot that follows up the cut is also like it's comedic masterpiece, right? Where
what
like
is it again?
no, just the part where like Dan is sitting still, clearly being like, "How am I going to explain this to my wife? This is not only emotionally devastating, but also just really weird on top of it." And then he, opens his mouth, and that's where the hard cut comes. And I think that's it's such a good cinematic decision. Like I'm just
Uh,
like, yeah, what words could you possibly put into this to, on the one hand, convey the emotional impact that an affair actually has with I've been having sex inside of a video game with my best friend
who
since
is our old roommate?
like I mean just economically in terms of time, like the amount of questions you would have in this moment as Theo would be the majority of a feature length
Yeah, no,
movie.
and they really slow roll it, right? They're like, yeah, no, we're gonna like she's gonna like have to badger him for a bit until he like gets out with it. And fair enough. But yeah, no, apparently they manage it because we cut ahead again.
Yeah.
The episode is basically over now. The arrangement that we're sort of being shown again in montage is that once a year, um, Theo and Danny exchange packages, and Theo gets the chance to put away her wedding ring, and Danny gets that sweet, sweet VR dongle back.
Yeah, so they both get to have like one sanctioned affair.
Yeah, one cheat day a year.
Which like,
and that's the episode.
Yeah, but also it's just like, as a final moment, doesn't feel like an equal exchange, does it? Because like it's like, okay, the VR dongle is needed to do the sex. You don't need a box to put away your wedding ring.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's. I think you like managed to make it symbolic. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think maybe this is just like, maybe this is its own sort of commitment ceremony. Maybe it's the sociology of the whole thing, you know?
And we were really aiming for a short summary here.
Yeah, but there's so much funny shit in this episode. We have to go through all of it. There's so many good moments.
No, like the sheer length, like going back immediately to the cut from them being young to them being middle aged. Just like the glasses they put on Anthony Mackie. It's just like, oh yeah, no. Like the costume department is like doing work. Guess he doesn't look any fucking different. Like he hasn't even like really changed his hair.
He's just a nerd. Like I was thinking about this.
He just looks like an accountant.
Because like one thing we haven't mentioned, and that I don't actually think is at all important in the episode, is that the cast is like all black, right? And I'm just like, I remember looking at Theo's like dress and being like, holy shit, this is the dress of like a suburban mom going to like their kid's ball. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I think there's something interesting there in how they evoke these guys are suburban, read in parentheses, miserable.
Yeah. No, there's like at least one white guy in the back of like one shot, but I don't think there are any white speaking roles.
And I was making this point, I do really think there's some value to making sure that the video game episode isn't about two white guys, because I think it would take on different aspects.
Yeah, no, because like both of these men look like they're physically fit. Like they're not like dweeby little nerds.
Yeah, like they are attractive. Like I think the entire main cast is attractive.
Yeah.
Like and. There's like an ongoing thing in the episode that's like, oh, like we're getting older, my body isn't what it used to be, and you just have these like there's no work done to make them unattractive. Like that's the thing about Anthony Mackie's Danny here. I was very close to saying Danny, but like Anthony Mackie as like a 38-year-old dad is still really hot despite being dressed up as a nerd.
Yeah, no, like he makes it work. Like only when he is wearing like the beigest pants is he like really dragged down a bit.
Yeah, and like there's a moment where Theo, as like the main female character here, is like like looking at her like body in the mirror and being like. And like the subtext of the scene, right, is I'm getting old, and it's like, and you just see this,
she's
like,
having self-doubt, but like these are all like Hollywood good-looking people.
Yeah, like these are like there isn't even the pretension of like, let's paint on some wrinkles or like some stretch marks. They are just hot.
Yeah,
like this is a great bisexual episode for anyone watching it. Like.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just like it falls a bit flat, but in a very funny way to reflect upon.
Speaking of bisexuality, I think we need to get into the meat of what the fuck is going on in this episode.
Okay, so like I was running through it in my head because I was like, I mean, I'll prostrate myself here by saying, first time I watched this, I honestly think maybe I was a bit too harsh in judging it as it's just an episode I thought about. What it would be like if they had sex in VR and then thought nothing else about it. I do think they're trying to do something more with it now. Yeah, I don't know where to go with that. Like there's a lot of queer stuff you can get into here, right?
Yeah, and well, I want to flag one extremely non-queer thing.
Okay.
Because like I was like keeping track of the characters in the video game more. And I was like, okay, do they actually ever try different characters? Because like we get a very strong continuity because like in the like prologue, like they're playing the same fucking video game characters. It's like Lance and Roxette, and like we never see Danny playing anyone other than Lance.
Yeah. Who is, like, just, for the visualization, I think is the most basic, like, fighting game character, right?
Yeah.
He's...
Well, no, he's Asian, which...
Yes,
the
I know.
most basic, I think, is like an American.
Okay, that's not an important argument.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
Sure.
He is Ken or whatever.
Yeah, no, he is like out of the box, like standard, and like neither of them is like one of the zesty fighting game characters, right? There's like no one with like a big skull, though we do find out that the game does have like a bear in it.
And literally here, like let's be careful about the verbiage we use here. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, it is an interesting thing, right? Because, like, I get it, like, that makes sense on a...
Yeah, it's economical.
It's
like,
very
you
economical.
can't switch out, like, actors every time and, like, expect the audience to follow the chemistry. But, like, they don't even, like, shove anything in during the montages or anything.
Yeah, like, it's an interesting thing, right? Because you have a little seed, right? Where you could be like, this is, in a very specific way, about transhumanism, what it's like to live in someone else's body. And there's a follow-up there, because at one point in the middle, and I think one thing we should mention as well is that, like, this isn't literally just sex. They are also cuddling and, like, just kind of affectionately looking at each other during this entire time. Like, it is passionate, right? But it's not just sex.
Yeah, no, like, they're... I think I wrote this, like, for, like, the final scene we get of them, like reuniting in the game. Like, the direction and like everything puts like work in to give like transcendent sensuality to like this experience, right? Like they're...
Yes. And speaking of trans, there's a moment when they are cuddling where Danny asks, like, what's it, I forget what words he uses, but essentially it's like, what's it like to orgasm or slash have sex as a woman? And we get like a bit of a cliched, I think, exploration of that. But like, there's a moment where this touches upon like these people are in different bodies, like
and they're experiencing things that are otherwise fundamentally unavailable to them. Not just like being a like insanely sick, nasty like fighter who can do like sick flips, because like we get this in this like not super high budget like fighting scene in the beginning that like these characters do have like fighting moves still. And there's like this strange like continuity of like, I guess they have played them so they know the moves still. But
I think it works. I think that's like works. But I think it's interesting because like fundamentally looking at the rest of the sex scenes, and there's a lot in this episode, the fighting game characters do not actually do anything weird. Like, obviously they are very fit, very acrobatic, very flexible. Like, there's a lot to say about, but not supernaturally in any way.
Yeah, no, like, I honestly, like, was a bit disappointed with the casting not going for, like, some, like, I know, like, wrestlers or something. Like, people who have, like, truly unusual physical proportions. No, they just went for, like more fit, like, very fit actors.
Yeah, like, one of the things you could look into in this episode as, like, a theme or whatever is, like, escapism, right? Like, it's a very, I think, obvious reading of the episode. Because, like, I think one of the things that really struck me is how, like, beautiful the environments are that they fight slash have sex in. Like, there's the whole, like, beach thing. Like, it's a beautiful sun. Everything is super, like, saturated with color. And I think that's really interesting because, obviously, that's a huge part of escapism. But you're also piloting a character who can jump 5 meters into the air, like standing. And, like, it's very weird that the environment becomes the sort of visual symbolism for the, like, escapism of the whole thing, you know? And again, I feel we need to reestablish that the fighting game characters are very hot. The main cast in real life are also very hot. Like, it's not that big of a jump.
Like, there's not a big gradient difference.
Like, they are more explicitly super fit, right?
Yeah.
But, like, it's just not that big of a jump, I think, in the holistic sense.
Yeah, no. It's like to dive a bit deeper. Like I'm sort of reminded of which was it? Beyond the Sea.
Yeah.
And how there we ended up saying like, the sci-fi framing device actually doesn't really do anything for this episode.
Yeah.
And
do you think it does for this one?
yes.
I agree. Like I am on board with this because like I kept running through like how do you contextualize this, and I think like escapism, read like in parentheses porn perhaps especially, is even like outright mentioned in the episode.
Yeah.
So you can definitely read it into like, okay, this is essentially about like characters having these like tired with my life, like I have this like emotional attachment to what like seemingly my best friend. Like they don't really show an extended social network.
No, but also like they haven't seen each other in forever. Like I think that
Yeah.
is like sort of one of the sort of less articulated but like present horrors that like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no. Like this is Simon. He's more or less my best friend, but I have nothing with him in common. But we are deeply integrated with each other's lives, not because our children are friends. And that is sort of like the alienation shorthand that we're being given earlier on for like understanding why Danny is so isolated.
Yeah, but like essentially, like you can drape this very easily in technology, right? Like porn is a really easy one to go with, but just like anything of like, let's, because the one thing I kept coming back to in my head was like, this is fundamentally a story about like passion and like how you lose it to fit into like a suburban house, but like or like home and stuff like that. But like it's also, I feel like it doesn't say that much about it, like because yeah, like in a very literal sense, um what Danny and uh, Carl have is literally unreal. It's a video game,
Yes.
but like their kind of real life does suffer for it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
like very explicitly, their sex lives are worse apart from each other,
Yeah.
and it is affecting their family life. But I'm also kind of like in this reading, I'm pro Danny and Carl. Like maybe they should just like divorce slash separate from their other partners and be like, hey, we clearly have way more chemistry. Maybe we should just keep doing this thing in a video game.
Well, and I think that is sort of like where the sci-fi premise really crashes into the episode, because like we have them like we follow the affair narrative up to a certain point could be done like without any tech, right?
Yeah.
Right up until the final confrontation, uh, where they're like, well, let's see if this is for real, because it is at that point that we like crash into the notion of like, oh no, there's a discontinuity here
Yeah.
between like the attraction they feel in their sort of escapism and the attraction they feel like in like real physical space. And like it is like until that point, like the affair could have just been a like regular affair, but at that point it becomes very complicated.
Yeah. Like I think the interesting thing that to me is that like the virtual affair, I suppose, like them having sex as video game characters is never shown as like losing its edge, I guess. Like
No.
they keep having fun.
Yeah,
Very,
no.
very clearly. They love it. And it's even when this becomes like an institutionalized thing that their well, Danny's partner knows about, it's still fun. Like clearly, it's not just about like, "Ooh, I'm going off having an affair."
Yeah.
Because even when it's institutionalized, it's fun.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah,
So
they're so into it.
like at some point, I genuinely start having to ask, why not? Like, what's the problem? In the sense of like, maybe Danny's just falling out of love with Theo, and they have like Danny and Carl have this better thing going on in the video. And it's like, and I think this is like an interesting thing to debate, but like on some level, I'm kind of looking at this like narratively. Does it really matter that it's not real? Because so far, I'm not seeing the problem with it apart from the moral problems of an actual affair, right?
See, I think it matters in a certain way. because like what it does is, especially for Danny, because like Danny is like the most emotionally withdrawn of the core cast. Like he's never in person expressive.
No.
But in the video game he is, right?
Yeah.
He's sort of like casually affectionate in person, but he's never like
Never deep, like it never cuts any deeper than
yeah.
haha buddy and oh wife, I do love you. But
Yeah, no, and there's something very routine, and I think that is sort of the interesting thing, where like the discontinuity hugely matters to him because it lets him not be himself, and he doesn't seem to be happy with himself.
yeah.
Like very, very strangely, like Carl is like we never get the sense that like Carl is trans, right?
Yeah, no,
Like
absolutely not.
he is fully happy being both like the virtual hot lady and the in person like like virile, youthful, like lively dude.
Yeah.
And but like Carl is strangely like the more trans of the two in a way because like he is like a dead man walking in his life like at points. Right? There's just like something missing, and that's sort of what I think sets the affair apart for him, that he gets to not be himself.
Danny or
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we don't that's not what it is for Carl. Like for Carl it is more of a physical thing. But
It's more
like
of a physical thing, and I think like my read on it is a little bit like because there's a lot of scenes of them cuddling too, especially in like the middle part of the episode, and I think that kind of maybe hints that Carl is also into it for like the more emotional continuity of this is like my best friend. I have a lot of positive feelings towards him.
yeah.
Also, now I'm a lady and I'm straight, thus I can also have a very straight relationship with my also male best friend. Um, and like I think that's exemplified right by him going, "I love you." Sorry, don't know where that came from. Actually, yeah, I do.
Yeah, no,
Like, I think you could do a reading on this about like how straight men interact with each other and like homosexuality and like the potential lack of affection that can
yeah.
hamstring a lot of this.
Yeah,
But
no, and like I think that is genuinely like very key to it because like that is sort of like the a big part of the alienation that we're being shown, like with Danny in particular. Like he's just like he's like, oh yeah, no, uh, hey fellow parent, do you like only like mountain bikes or bicycles or also like motorcycles, and just gets like completely rebuffed. Like he's struggling.
yeah,
Um,
like I think also like I made this point when we were watching Beyond the Sea. I
mhm,
think it's yeah, Beyond the Sea, where like the one time the men are shown allowed to be emotional is in the presence of a woman, right? And there's something to it here too, right? If you're doing like a queer feminist reading of this, it's like suddenly when one of them gets to inhabit a woman's body, we get to like gently fondle each other, like they like sort of like play with each other's hair, like
yeah,
it's very affectionate.
yeah, and like the thing that I like that's also a continuity here is that like Carl is also like in the prologue shown to be like more physically affectionate.
Yeah,
Like there's just like this sort of like small section after they get told off for playing fighting games too loud,
yeah.
where like they're sort of like jostling, and like it's very much Carl that's being like more physical in that, and
And
like it's
pretends to have sex with
yeah,
Danny physically, and it's very boys' locker room sort of thing,
yeah,
where it's like, oh, that's something you could interpret in an interesting way. But yeah,
yeah,
anyway,
but Carl is like at peace with like himself in
and Danny
all
is
ways.
very restrained, right, to the
Yeah,
point of like, no, 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 I need to attend to my girlfriend slash wife. I need to raise my kids. I like it's. I do think there's a lot to dig into here,
yeah,
But I wonder if it's one of those things where it says more about the authors than about the work they created on some level. But I think it's very interesting.
I mean, I do think they like play the like world now for like a bit of humor,
Yeah.
but it's always very hard to see like which parts are intentionally funny and which ones are just us. But
Yeah.
also, like we are bringing a bit of a strange energy to this because we are watching it for the second time each, and
We both know where like things are going to
yeah,
lead roughly. We both specifically remember the conversation about having sex with the polar bear character. So
yeah,
like we were deeply rooted in this episode. But yeah, like I think pulling back from like the purely sort of like romance slash sex view of it, the one thing that I keep thinking about is like viewing this through the technological lens Black Mirror, generally speaking at least, wants us to view these
mm,
episodes through. What is this like supposed to be evocative of, right? Because like there's again porn, obvious one. Like it has a very obvious reading of like this affects their relationships, like their sexual function,
mm,
like a lot of that. But I think you can also start looking at into like, are we talking about like addiction to other things? Like, is this about the like could this be about long distance relationships? Like, because I think it is an interesting idea to have like there's a layer of artificiality, but that layer does not actually impede on their ability to be emotional with each other. Rather, it
no,
allows them to be so by giving them these like masks.
yeah, and I keep coming back to like them being like explicitly shown to like be playing the same characters like
Hmm.
over like a decade or
Like there's a
something.
very clear identification.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I'm thinking
exactly.
about like a long distance relationship. Like if you have that with someone and like you have these online avatars like VR chat or whatever,
Mm,
and that's how you communicate with each other, like it becomes identifying, right? Like that's where it starts crossing this line of like, oh no, this isn't real, it's just a game. But like the I suppose I would contend that the deeply meaningful parts of their relationship has nothing to do with the game. Like it doesn't have to be.
yeah,
That's just the layer that allows them to do it.
yeah, it like the escape. It's like an escape into like a place of like sincerity and connection.
Yeah. Like I don't know what to do with that, you know? I don't know what this episode thinks it's commenting on.
It's quite hard to think about because like it's like this seems to be a preoccupation of Charlie Brooker's, right? Um,
What specifically do you think? Because there's a lot of
like the
preoccupations.
sort of mediated affair.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and just in general, sort of like the idea of technology, like we'll see this a lot more, I think, going forward. But the idea of technology giving you this sort of like sheet between you and the world, and
Hmm.
between, but like this one, I think is really interesting because it there is nothing here in the technology that suppresses the characters.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because we're giving being given sort of very opposing things by the episode.
Mhm.
Because on the one hand, we're being given like these very vibrant characters and these very like sincere emotional scenes, but like we keep cutting back to them looking like fucking zombies.
And I'll be honest, I don't buy it. Like the zombie thing is clearly meant to be like, oh, this is not real. This is like them siphoning emotional like power from themselves into this video game. And like I don't buy it, honestly. Like it feels like a visual metaphor to be like, this is bad. But
Yes, and like it is stuck to like in the final scene when they
yeah.
have like the arrangement set up, it still does the cut to them looking fucking uh glazed over. But then we cut to this beautiful like scene on top of a skyscraper at sunset looking over a sort of rustic skyline. And like I don't think that contrast is resolved.
Yeah, I think this episode is fundamentally fascinated by the concept of artificiality, but I don't buy that it's as artificial as the episode wants me to feel. That is my perspective on things.
Yeah. No,
Like,
it's
because, like, again, there is passion in like their trysts, their affair. There's emotional connection there, clearly,
Yes.
like expressed through physical affection. So I don't buy that they're zombies.
Yeah, no, and like the actors in like the video game put like more passion on the line than the actors in real life. Like the real life actors are like like, and I don't think this is like a failure. Like this seems to be extremely intentional. Like they're like awkward until the very end. Like they never like get out of their heads. They're always like is like a bit better, but like Danny never like.
I think it's also like I think it is an interesting thing because I do think there are some scenes of Danny showing this sort of like physical affection to his wife, especially when it's meant to be like, oh, he's on the rebound now that he's quit Carl, and but it's still like it's very muted, right? Like you wouldn't say it's passionate. It's loving but not passionate.
Yeah, and well, when he's in the video game, he is expressive. He is like emotive, and like that contrast is putting something down that the episode does not want to like fully go in on.
Yeah, because like I don't know, this is where it feels like it needs to say something about this artificiality that it keeps setting up. And it doesn't. It feels like it's hand waving to they look like zombies and it's ruining like Danny's real relationship. Thus it's bad. And like fair enough that it ruining their relationship is bad, but like that's something that can be accomplished by a completely normal affair.
Yeah.
And also like if you're not attracted to your wife or attracted to the life you put together, I'm not gonna say you should have an affair, but also like it's fair. Like you can't force that. Like it's not for Danny not wanting to be attracted to his wife. Like clearly, he seems to be a good father up until he gets the chance to have sex with the video game character. But you know, but like you know what I mean, right? Like in the sense that it doesn't feel like his lack of attraction to his wife is a moral failing. It's just what it is.
I mean, it's also like very acutely tied to like getting absolutely like wrung out in the video game, right? Like, it's not like he is like sexually inactive when he's not specifically like hitting Carl every night in the in the virtual world.
The man clearly has sexual energy just for one person at a time.
Yeah.
And but like that's what I mean though. It's like it's but prior to this, like there's no real sign that their relationship is bad. Just boring.
It's not. I don't think it's supposed to be either.
Like it's impassionate, but
yeah, no,
that's
like,
where it ends.
Yeah, no, like it's just like I think it is. There might be something in here about like coping, because like I think Charlie Brooker has a bit of a fatalist streak.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is like it is what it is. A lot of like that is something he believes at least some of the time, and I think it like here we can see him sort of like wrestling with that because on the one hand, like he never like paints Danny as seeing an out, but like he's never like he needs to get out. He's just like he needs to blow off some steam, I guess.
Yeah, like one thing that I also just like I keep thinking about this is like one of the sort of like subplots I guess we haven't really touched on is that like Theo, apart from feeling bad about her perfect, gorgeous body, is also like there's a moment where when they're meeting up for the wedding night, like Danny's late and she gets hit on by this other guy who is also very attractive. Although one of
French.
Is he? Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
But I thought so.
But like he's very attractive. To be honest, not as attractive as the rest of the main cast. But like if we're gonna have to do the tier list, he's still like good looking for sure. And she clearly enjoys the getting hit on, right? Because
extremely. If she's like, oh yeah, no, I fucking hate my husband right now. I think that I'm quite happy that I'm getting this attention.
Yeah, like it's really interesting because clearly she's. I was about to use the word getting off on the affirmation, and that's valid, right? Because she hasn't been shown it. But she does the virtuous thing and rejects him, and then like part of it in the finale is that like she's using this to like she's also going on these affairs probably a large part due to that affirmation, as hinted on earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
So, like, clearly, like, both of these people still have sexual energy, you know? They have a need to be, like, passionate and wanted. They're just not getting it with each other. And
Yeah.
at that point, like, it feels bad to say, but, like, isn't that a fair reason to break up?
See, I think that's a perfectly reasonable take. I think what we're getting in the story is that, like, basically that's just life. You know, you sort of like wriggle your way through and like find an arrangement that makes you like square the circle a bit. And like it doesn't have to be like proper, but you know, you need, because you like it ends up saying like, no, you can't move out of the suburbs, right? Like I think like that's never up for question. You can't change your life to be like more vibrant. You just like have to like find some like sucker at the edges.
But my point is that I think you can absolutely make life more vibrant. Like,
I don't think the episode thinks so.
no, I think, okay, like, this is the moment where I think we should flag for the future. Does Charlie Brooker hate the suburbs? Like, does Charlie Brooker think the suburbs is a place to go to die? Because I don't know. Like, I'm running through the episode list and the future in my head, and I'm like, maybe that comes up more. But I think it's something we should keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one thing I want to, because and I might be misremembering this, it's been a while since we had this several hours long argument, but I seem to recall you had a very specific point about what you felt like the episode was about. Do you remember?
No.
I think you had this idea that the episode is partially about like how arbitrary attraction is, like how getting into a relationship with someone does not have to be based on or like be produced by, oh, like we have the same interests, we have similar values, or anything like that. Partially because like clearly the emotional connection between these two characters of Danny and Carl is not enough for them to be hot in the real world together.
Well, I think that is sort of left on a bit of a cliffhanger, right? Because I do think like the episode is putting down that like, oh no, Danny would be into like figuring out where this goes, like in like the real world, because like he is the one who is like, no, we need to meet and figure out what the fuck is happening. Like there's like a like he's the pragmatist of the two, and Carl is like, oh no, we can do both. We can have our cake and eat it forever. But no, Danny's like the pragmatist, and he's like, no. If this is a real thing, like we need to kiss, we need to see the fireworks, and then we need to like move from there.
Yeah, like I think he does say something along those lines of right, like, and then we need to deal with it, which is like, that's interesting. Like, what do you mean with that? Because like, if you want to stick with your wife 100%, the dealing with it does not necessitate the kiss first, right?
Yeah, no, but like I think he just wants to know where he is, because like he is like the most disoriented by this all, right? Because Carl is just like, oh yeah, no, this doesn't need to be a problem ever, and Danny's like, no, this is real and it needs to be treated with seriousness, and like that's a tension, right? That's like the tension between the two of them.
I think it's like an interesting because like I do remember you making that point when we had this argument about like how being attracted to someone is like fundamentally arbitrary and how that was part of what the episode was saying. I think it's interesting, right? Because Carl and Danny have good chemistry as friends. Like they are clearly like a little bit of a light in each other's lives. Of, like,
no, and like they're sort of like a yin and yang, because like Danny is a bit too serious and Carl is a bit too light, but you know they sort of add.
Like Carl gives a little bit of like, oh yeah, there's my friend who like did Molly when they were like I was gonna say kids when they were 27, which is the most youthful and fertile of
Yeah,
ages,
the most vibrant age to be is
where
27 years
where the
old.
hottest people are. Um, but there's a moment right like where they refer to like so he's like that little like spark of wildness and like clearly cheers Danny up from his suburban hellscape,
Yeah,
and Carl has like oh yeah, this is a person who is like has been in my life for a very long time. This is emotional stability. Um, but so I think it's interesting that like when they're about to kiss, they look like they've just been put together at like a high school event where they're told you need to be friends now. They
yeah.
are magnificently awkward.
Yeah, no, like it's some powerful acting.
Like it's so interesting, right? Because like they have great friendship chemistry. As the video game characters, they obviously have fantastic sexual chemistry. Actors are nailing it.
Yeah,
Literally, and also like genuinely like very affectionate and emotional
yeah,
chemistry of like oh they're like brushing each other's hair and like her head is in his lap looking up like starry-eyed at him like it's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. No, they have something very magical, and like we just like come crashing to earth, and I think like in this way the sort of arbitrariness of attraction sort of feeds into the fatalism, because like Charlie Brooker's fatalism does not say, oh yeah, no, attraction is arbitrary, give yourself over to it. As you say, attraction is arbitrary, but it won't get you out of the fucking suburbs.
There's a lot of truth to that. I also think like one thing I'm reflecting on now is that even in those like that prologue where they're 27, great age, and like we're seeing Danny and Theo, like they don't have a huge amount of chemistry. Like they're fine, like they're completely
Yeah.
good, but it's not anywhere near the video game
No.
chemistry that Danny and Carl will have. So it's kind of like because you could have very easily made that point of like. Oh yeah, every relation like then this is also a very fatalist view, but you could have made a point like every relationship has a honeymoon phase and then it dies a little bit. Like I don't agree with that, but like I could see the point being made, and then like you just gotta
No.
live with it. But it kind of feels like even in the prologue, Charlie Brooker is pointing out that like Danny and Theo are like viable as a couple, but like not fairy tale by any means.
Yeah, no, I think like it sort of like ties into escapism a bit more, because like um okay, like I'm sort of torn on this, and I think the episode like isn't entirely clear on it either, because like my initial thought was like, oh yeah, no, like they're video game characters, like they're superhuman, like fighters, like everything is heightened, so therefore also like the sexual experience is heightened, like
Yeah.
but crucially, like this thesis is like rejected by the by the episode, because no, it's not generally like the technology that's like holy shit, boning in this game is so good. No, it's like specifically these two.
They have perfect chemistry. Like they
Yeah,
apparently like have sex in the perfect way with each other specifically. Like
yeah,
there's so much interesting because like yes, the sci-fi point of this episode works, but also like you if you pitch me this idea, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see where that goes. Like the episode points out early enough that like, yeah, you feel pain, but everything grows back and you're fine and you recover quickly. So like, I look at that and I immediately go, okay, probably gonna do some BDSM shit at some point. Nope, not at all. Like not even slightly. Like, are they
no,
gonna
no, it's
incorporate
very
body fighting?
tender.
It's very yeah, it does become very tender, but it's also
Yeah,
like very vanilla, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like an interesting thing of here are these superhuman characters. You don't have to worry about pain, like or like I mean, you feel pain, but you don't have to worry about the consequences. You'll be back to normal. Are you gonna do anything else but have vanilla sex? No,
I mean they crashed through a wall once, like that.
that's good.
Yeah,
Like
no, it's
mm,
like I think it is vanilla, but like vanilla with like Olympic athlete energy. Like
yeah, but
they're having like Olympic Village vanilla sex. They're not having like normal people vanilla sex.
That's fair enough, I suppose. But it's just like, it's one of those interesting things, because for a moment, when the kissing scene later in the episode, like at the end, breaks down and they start fighting, I had a moment, I think the first time I watched this, where like, oh, is that what's gonna unlock the spark for them, that they were fighting each other? And it's like, nope, not at all, not even reference to it. And I was like, god damn it.
Yeah, no, and like for me, that like sort of really underlines the like discontinuity with the video game characters. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the fighting or the romantic spark, except but they don't give it much of a
They
whirl.
don't give much of a thought. Like, you know, speaking from a very personal point now, if someone goes, we need to kiss in this like very unattractive milieu, I would probably not be super into it. That's not
Yeah,
really
no,
setting the mood particularly well.
like that's not very scientific of you. Like that's a very small amount of data.
I was gonna say there's a very funny alternative episode where like after this, Danny goes, "Look, yes, this didn't work, but let's try it." And they're like, "A better." Like, listen, I'm gonna get Theo out of the house for the weekend. I'll buy some candles. I'll stir some roses. Then, if that doesn't work, I'll be convinced.
Yeah, no, like there is like a bit of a tragedy of focus in this episode.
Yeah, like it's okay. I started having this metaphor where it's like I was thinking like, does this episode drop the ball? And I don't think it really does, because I don't think the episode really had an idea of what ball it was holding. I
No,
think someone threw like a dodgeball at them and they caught it and they went with it a little bit and then they were like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with
I'm
this.
gonna go for a home run with this dodgeball now. That's sort of what I'm getting. It's never sure what lane it's on.
And then the referee blows the whistle and the episode's over. Like it's
Yeah, no, like
I have a much more positive view of this episode this time around, because I
yeah,
think
because it's so fucking funny.
it's really funny.
Like the actors just like deliver everything like so acutely.
It's also like it's one of the few episodes of Black Mirror where I really really care about the characters on some level. Like genuinely, like seeing their chemistry inside the video game is enough for me to go, yeah, okay, I'm on board. Like that's good.
Yeah.
Like they nail it.
Yeah, no, like there's just like something here. And like to like delve into the sin of like alternate framings for a second.
Uh huh.
Like I think we could have had a very interesting episode that's like, oh yeah, no, we like go like near the end in medias res, and then just like we get or like we just like zoom through like the episode, and then we spend like half or three quarters on it on the like insane hashing out of like the arrangement, and give that more flesh and more like
Mm.
depth. Because I think it is like at that point that like the characters are starting to critically engage with the technology, but we don't get that, and I think that's quite sad
Yeah.
because I don't know. I think it like throws up a couple of balls, and then it's like shuts off the light before it has to juggle them.
Yeah. Like the thing that really terrifies me about this episode too is that I think it is genuinely not unreasonable to watch this entire episode and go, I think the point of this episode was that open marriages are good. The end. Like
But
I think the material genuinely just could be interpreted that
yeah,
way.
but it's like a very contractualist open marriage. It's
Oh
like a
yeah,
once a year fling thing.
I
Like there's
agree, but like the point is, it feels like this episode with everything it's throwing out there should not be able to be summarized that easily, right?
I mean, anything to save the suburbs.
Yeah, I'm so curious because like I know there are more episodes coming in the suburbs, so like
Yeah, no, and like but like that's sort of like what happens, right? Like compromises are made to return to the status quo, but it is returned to. And I don't know what that means, but I don't like it.
yeah, because like I get the feeling that when the ending runs, we're supposed to be like, they worked this out, but it's not good. it's not good. Maybe not in the literal sense that they're unhappy with it, but that they are doing some sort of philosophical meaning of life wrong here.
Yeah, no, like they are. Like they like
And I
they just
agree, Danny and Carl should be together.
it should be something, you know, they could hash out something a bit better, but they don't.
Yeah, no, it's
God, like one thing that like really really strikes me as like siding with our take here that this is like a failure ultimately of like the imagination. I guess like on the side of the characters you could argue, not even on the side of the writers, is like the shot of Carl before he jacks into the cyber bone room.
Mhm.
We have a calendar that is in his apartment, and this calendar is empty except for a big red cross through the one day,
The day of sex.
the day of cybersex. That is so good that I guess that's just what they're settling with.
Yeah, God, like I want to take because this is such a unique opportunity to reflect on us both having seen this episode previously and having had a massive argument about it. Because I think the first time I watched this, I was like, I wouldn't say angry, but I was distinctly annoyed by the end of it. And I think that probably comes from the like, that's it sort of feeling of like, oh, they didn't want to go any further with it. This time I had so much of a better time because I knew there wasn't gonna be a grand point, like
Yeah,
there
no,
wasn't gonna be fulfillment.
I think if you like really try to like read from like just the text that is there, like there is a bit of incoherence, but there is also just like um it is this very intricate story of people being confronted with something and just sort of backing away, but like not being able to quite, but still like backing away as much as they
I
can.
suppose in that way it's kind of a synecdoche, right, for the writers that they're like they're bringing this thing up and they're gonna be like that would be interesting to explore. Nah,
Yeah, no, and like there's and in the doing of it, they throw up so many like absolutely like mind-boggling questions. Like we never look at the world in which this technology exists. Uh, apparently other people are also fucking in the game because obviously they are. But like it is just sort of like a modified present for the most part that seems to just be generally nicer because everyone's affluent.
because I think this is like it's such an interesting idea, right? The hinting or like well the statement I suppose that there are other people doing this. In fact, there are entire groups of people doing this.
Yeah,
Because like in my head, there's the like queer reading of this, right? Like they uncover something about themselves and they're like, huh, what to do with that? Anyway, back in the closet. And there's like an interesting thing where like in that reading, like the idea that there are other people who are doing this societally strange thing, like you could get some wisdom on it, like help like figure out what does this mean about me? What is this like? What did it mean for you? Like, is this a thing? Like, have any of you guys had sex in the game and then being like, oh, we would be a great couple in real life? Like, there's so much to draw from there, and they just like nothing. We never hear about another person doing this or see another person
yeah,
do this.
well, and I guess like to be like extremely like charitable, I think like this does just like compound the like uh reading that this episode is about uh like backing away from things. It's from
Yeah,
like
and
denying your curiosity.
and returning to the isolation, right?
Yeah,
Like both the isolation of the playboy lifestyle of Carl and the suburban hellscape of Danny.
yeah, and I but like in the episode is trying to like, and I guess the episode's condemnation sort of like is inverted a bit by the end because like oh yeah no, like the like glazed over zombie state is no longer like a condemnation of the escapism, but it sort of like transfers more to the general situation of like eh.
Yeah.
And I that's like I guess it is a bit charitable, but I do think like there is just like a like I feel like this does sort of line up with like the continuity of like Bleak Brooker, where he's just like, oh man, this shit sucks. Um,
Yeah, I do want to ask you though, like, how do you think rewatching this episode has changed things in your mind about it?
I mean, like, it's not the rewatching of this episode that has changed my view of it for the most part, I think. It's more that the context of more Black Mirror makes me like a lot more keenly aware of like how deeply is the technology relevant to the plot, and like in this case it's like extremely ambivalent because like it's there but it's like it's afraid of it, and it's this like juggling and non-committal thing that reads as a lot that I have sort of lost a bit of mirth for, because it's just, like when you see this episode, and I saw this episode as like the second episode of Black Mirror I had ever seen. um and it was like, oh man, he's touching on so many interesting concepts here. And I guess that's just, and now coming like with more Black Mirror like in my back pocket, it's like he is he is touching on interesting concept. He does that all the time. um
Do you think knowing about the writer here has harmed your
Yes,
respect for this episode?
absolutely. Like I think just like seeing this as like like encountering this on its own as like a piece to think about is a lot more like gives a lot more than like encountering this like after having like tried to like get something from other like Black Mirror episodes. But like I want to be charitable, and I want to like place it in the canon of like almost like of these very bleak things that are just like, oh man, like I guess this is the world we live in, huh? Like the sort of fatalist Brooker, and like that's sort of where it sits for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, I think it goes into in a weird way, and I don't think I had this perspective on things last time because it's not. This is not as tech is bad and scary as
No.
Brooker can be. So I think in my head, this wasn't as stereotypical of a Black Mirror episode as I now kind of view it to be. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, and like I think like the other thing is like just the amount of comedy, like the amount that it's like extreme, like the actors. The actors are delivering this so extremely well. Like these like bizarre situations and people acting uh, like a bit silly and a bit strangely, and like, oh man, I'm so middle aged. What the fuck happened to me? And like, oh man, don't you want another hit of that sweet, sweet cybersex? You know you want it. And I think all these just like strangenesses sort of like lended some amount of charm that like sort of eases the heaviness of like the sort of underlying like bleak ideas that I think are never like refuted, and I don't think are ever intended to be refuted, because I do think that is like stuff that Charlie Brooker earnestly like tries to contend with and doesn't really have a solution for.
Yeah. I also just like this is fun like trivia thing to start leaving us off on. When this episode was filmed, Carl was like the actor. Carl was 32 and Danny was 40, and that makes sense. That makes sense based on their energies in the episode.
Hmm.
I just think it's like a very fun little detail about them being like, oh man, we sure are middle aged now.
Hate to be, no, he
I'd hate to be 38. I'm just gonna say it. It
yeah,
seems like a
no,
terrible age.
yeah, no. If you're listening and you're 38, like, hey, what have you accomplished with your life so far? Think about that. Have you had cool cyber sex with your best friend from like dorm room times? If not, experiment a bit. It's never too late to implement a small sliver of vibrancy in your life, but no more. Don't do more.
Extremely small amounts.
Yeah, no.
God, like, I hope we get this episode out to a lot of people so someone feels extremely hit by that.
Yeah, no, and like it's never too late to have a tiny amount of vibrancy in your life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think
Have sex with your best friend.
yeah, do it.
It's pussy.
Do it, coward.
Like like the point of this episode is that it didn't work with these two, but it's good for you.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, but we'll leave you off there.
What do we have next time? We have smithereens.
Yeah, I've no idea what that is.
This one I think is very Charlie Brooker in my previous stereotype of him. But I don't think it's bad from my recollection.
Okay, so I think that I'm very curious to see what that's all about.
I think this is very classical Black Mirror, is what I'm gonna say.
Well, I think we haven't had that much of that yet, so.
No, I think we're gonna start getting into more of it though.
Well, finally, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. See you on the other side.